At Christmas dinner, my grandpa slid 3 white envelopes across the table and said, "A little Christmas gift for each of you." The silverware froze midair. My parents laughed loud, performative, the kind that fills silence, because guilt can't. "It's just for show," my mom said, rolling her eyes. My dad joined in, like mocking him was a family sport. I didn't laugh. I just smiled, slipped mine into my coat pocket, and said nothing. They thought it was another one of his old man games. But the next morning when the phone rang and the banker said, "Your deposit is cleared, Ms. Hale," I realized he hadn't been joking at all. Before I tell you how that one call tore my family apart, tell me, where are you listening from? So I know I'm not the only one who's ever seen love turn fake over something that was never about money. My name's Amelia Hale, and that night wasn't the first time I'd seen my family laugh at something that mattered. My parents, Victor and Elaine, built their whole lives around looking perfect. They hosted charity brunches, posted smiling photos in front of their new cars, and said things like, "We've worked so hard for this life." What they never said was that most of it started with my grandfather, Edmund Hale, the man they loved to perform for, but secretly resented. Grandpa wasn't just rich, he was respected. Old school kind of rich investments, land, quiet money, the kind that didn't need to brag. He'd built everything himself and still wore the same leather watch from 40 years ago. He believed in effort, humility, and the value of silence. I think that's why he tolerated me more than them. I didn't take, I worked. I rented a 1-bedroom apartment in Portland and freelanced as an interior designer. No staff, no assistant, just me and my laptop. My parents thought that was failure. They called it humble, living in public, but at home they said things like, "You're wasting your potential. You could be running a firm by now if you'd just network." By network, they meant marry rich or charm clients like they did through connections, not competence. When Grandpa invited us for Christmas dinner that year, I went because I missed him. They went because they smelled money. I saw it in the way Mom checked her lipstick in the car mirror, the way Dad rehearsed his laugh. Everything with them was strategy. The dining room smelled like pine and roasted duck, the table set with crystal glasses and gold-trimmed plates. Grandpa sat at the head, his posture straight, his eyes sharper than they looked. We exchanged small talk about work and weather until he reached into his jacket and pulled out 3 identical envelopes. "A little Christmas gift," he said softly. Mom let out a short, performative laugh. "Oh, Dad, are we doing your pretend checks again? That's cute." Dad chuckled too. "You always make the holidays fun." I wanted to crawl under the table. Grandpa didn't move. He just looked at them, slowly, silently, then shifted his gaze to me. I felt my face warm. I didn't open the envelope. I didn't need to. I just said, "Thank you," and placed it carefully in my coat pocket. No one noticed that his smile faded a little after that. They kept talking, bragging, laughing like nothing happened. But I saw the way his hand lingered near his glass, the way he blinked slower than usual. He'd expected this. Later that night, when we said goodbye, he hugged me a second longer than he should have and whispered, "Keep it safe." I nodded, not realizing what he really meant. The drive home was silent except for the wipers scraping against the windshield. Mom broke it first. "You actually kept that thing," she said, twisting in her seat to look at me. "You know he does this every year. It's just his little act." Dad chuckled, already checking his phone. "He's testing who still worships him, that's all. He likes to feel powerful." I stared out the window at the falling snow. Or maybe I said quietly, "He just wants to see who still respects him." Mom sighed in that dramatic way she does when she thinks I'm being naive. "Sweetheart, you need to stop taking everything so seriously." That night, my apartment felt colder than usual. The radiator hummed weakly, and the scent of roasted duck still clung to my coat. I hung it on the back of a chair, pulled the envelope from the pocket, and turned it over in my hands. Grandpa's handwriting, steady, firm, familiar. I didn't open it at the table because it felt wrong. He'd handed it over like something sacred, not like a joke. So I sat on my bed, tore the flap carefully, and slid out a real check, 5 zeros. The ink wasn't faded or smudged. The signature was his, clean and deliberate. For a moment, I just stared. Then I slipped it back inside, folded the flap, and put it away in the small wooden box where I keep things that matter. letters, receipts from my first design job, a photo of Grandpa and me sanding a table in his workshop when I was 12. I didn't plan to cash it. I didn't plan anything. I just couldn't bring myself to treat it like a prop. The next day, I woke up to my phone buzzing, a message from Zoe, my friend and coworker. "How was the fancy family dinner?" I typed back, predictable. They laughed. I didn't. Zoe replied with a voice memo, her tone half joking, half serious. "Girl, you're the only one in that family with manners. Keep surviving." I smiled and went back to my coffee. But something gnawed at me. Grandpa's last words replayed in my head. "Keep it safe." I decided to deposit it not out of greed but curiosity. Maybe he'd meant for me to see something. Maybe it was just symbolic. I scanned it through my bank app and went on with my day, not expecting anything. Hours later, while I was sketching a client's living room layout, my phone rang. Unknown number. Hello, a calm, polite voice on the other end. "Good afternoon, Ms. Hale. I'm calling from your bank. Your deposit has cleared." I froze. Cleared, I checked the amount on my app exactly as written. My heartbeat stumbled. If mine cleared, what about theirs? I didn't even have time to process it before my phone buzzed again, this time Mom's name lighting up the screen. I hesitated, then answered. Her voice came sharp and shaky the way it does when she's angry but pretending she's not. "Did you talk to your grandfather today?" "No," I said slowly. "Why?" "Because something's wrong with the checks. The bank said ours were stopped. They said..." She paused, lowering her voice as if I'd done something terrible. "They said yours went through." I stayed quiet. The silence on my end seemed to make her angrier. Did you call him? Did you tell him something?" "No, Mom, I just deposited it." "Well, he's obviously playing favorites again," she snapped. "He's punishing us for being successful, for moving on." I wanted to say no, he's punishing you for laughing at him, but I didn't. I just listened to her breathe into the phone, frantic and defensive, like she was trying to rewrite the story before anyone else could. Later that day, Dad called. His tone was colder. "Your mother's upset. You could have told us you'd deposited it. It was a gift," I said. "That's what you do with gifts. Don't be smart with me, Amelia. He's old. He doesn't know what he's doing anymore." Old. That word lingered like a slap. That evening, Grandpa called me. His voice was calm, steady, nothing like theirs. "Did the bank contact you?" "Sweetheart, yes," I said. "They said it cleared." "Good." A pause. I could hear the crackle of his fireplace on the other end. "Don't worry about your parents. Some lessons take longer to learn." I didn't ask what he meant. I didn't need to. The next morning, the group family chat exploded, Mom's long messages full of blame and confusion, Dad threatening to straighten things out. But Grandpa said nothing. Instead, an invitation arrived in the mail 2 days later, his handwriting again. Dinner. Same house. Saturday, 7 p.m. No explanation, no note. Just a time and a place. Zoe called when she heard. "You think he's gonna call them out?" I looked at the neat black ink on the card. I think he already has. That Saturday, I stood in front of Grandpa's house again, snow crunching under my boots, heart steady. This time, I wasn't the quiet one waiting for permission to belong. I was the only one who'd passed the test. Grandpa's house looked exactly the same as it had a week earlier, warm light spilling from the windows, wreaths on every door, a quiet hum of a fireplace inside. But the air was different, tighter. I could feel it before I even knocked. When I stepped into the dining room, the table was set the same way, 3 place settings, same gold-rimmed plates, same silver serving tray polished to a mirror, except this time the air between us was heavy. Mom sat stiffly, arms crossed, a smile glued on like cracked porcelain. Dad scrolled his phone but kept glancing toward the hallway, waiting for Grandpa to appear. The sound of slow footsteps made both of them look up. Grandpa entered calm and deliberate, carrying a thin stack of papers. He didn't greet us. He didn't even look angry, just resolved. "I won't keep you long," he said, placing the papers on the table. "You'll each find your names there. Bank statements printed this morning." Mom blinked fast. "Dad, this isn't funny. You humiliated us. The teller said you stopped our checks." He nodded once. "I did." Silence. Why Dad demanded. If this was some kind of test, it's cruel. Grandpa looked at me, then back at them. "Cruel would be letting you keep thinking respect is optional." Mom's voice wavered. We didn't mean anything by it. We were just joking. Joking, he cut in. When you laughed at a gift I offered, you laughed at me. You laughed at the years that built it. She swallowed hard. We thought? Exactly, he said. You thought. He nodded toward me, felt. The room went silent again. The fireplace popped in the corner, and for a moment it was the only sound. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. Dad pushed back in his chair. This isn't fair. You know we've supported you too. You're overreacting. Grandpa raised an eyebrow. Supported me. You've taken my money and called it independence. You've built an image, not a life. Mom burst out crying, then the kind of cry that isn't sadness, it's fear. You can't just cut us off like this. He leaned back in his chair. I already have. Dad's face flushed. You'll regret this. Grandpa's tone softened just slightly. No, son. I regret raising a man who values appearance over honesty. He turned toward me. Amelia. My heart jumped. Yes, Grandpa. He pushed one of the folders toward me. This is yours. I've transferred full control of the trust and properties to your name. Daniel will guide you through the paperwork. Mom's head snapped up. What? He didn't flinch. You both still have your homes, your jobs, your lives. What you've lost is my belief that you understood what family means. Dad stood up, gripping the back of his chair so hard his knuckles turned white. You're rewarding her for doing nothing. Grandpa finally raised his voice sharp, cutting like thunder breaking through calm. She did everything. She listened. She respected. She didn't laugh. The echo of his words filled the room. No one dared breathe. Then quietly he said the same line that would end everything good. Now I know who's real. It landed like a verdict. Final, unarguable. Mom slumped in her chair. Dad looked away, his anger deflating into something smaller, shame maybe. I sat still, unable to move, my heart pounding with a mix of grief and clarity. After a long silence, Grandpa stood. Dinner's in the oven. You're welcome to stay and eat if you can still sit at this table honestly. He left the room. Mom started gathering her purse. Dad muttered something about unbelievable manipulation and stormed out. The front door slammed. The house went quiet again, only the ticking of the grandfather clock marking time. I looked around at the untouched plates, the soft light glinting off the silver. It felt surreal. Grandpa came back a few minutes later carrying 2 bowls of soup. He set one in front of me and sat down across the table, the seat that had always been his. We ate in silence for a while, the only sounds the clink of spoons and the wind outside. Finally, he spoke. You didn't cash it for the money, did you? I shook my head. No, I just didn't want to disrespect you. He nodded, a faint smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. That's what I thought. You see, Amelia, I don't care who has money. I care who has manners. He leaned back, watching the fire. People show you who they are when they think they're above gratitude. I swallowed hard, trying to steady my voice. You didn't have to do this to prove a point. I didn't do it to prove a point, he said. I did it to protect what's left of decency in this family. We finished our meal in quiet understanding. Before I left, he handed me another envelope, this one unsealed. Inside was a single note written in his neat, old-fashioned hand. Money changes hands every day. Respect only once. I tucked it into my coat pocket. Outside, snow had started again, falling in soft, slow spirals. As I stepped off his porch, I looked back through the window. He was still at the table, the fire reflecting off his glasses, looking peaceful, like a man who'd finally done what he had to. I drove home without turning on the radio. The world outside was quiet, and for the first time in years, so was I. A week later, I sat across from Daniel Kerr, Grandpa's lawyer, in a quiet downtown office that smelled faintly of paper and cedar polish. He explained the transfer details carefully, sliding a few trust records across the desk. I barely looked at the numbers. They didn't matter. Mr. Hale asked me to make sure you understand this isn't a reward, Daniel said gently. It's a responsibility. I nodded. He already taught me that. Outside, through the frosted window, the city moved as if nothing had changed. But everything had. My parents hadn't called since that night. Mom sent one short text, "Hope you're happy." I didn't answer. There wasn't anything left to say. When I went to visit Grandpa again, he was in his study reading by the fire. The light caught the edges of his glasses when he looked up. "I hope they're okay," I said. "They will be," he replied. Sometimes truth has to sting before it heals. We didn't talk about the money. We talked about my work, my next project, his garden plans for spring. It felt like breathing again. Before I left, he said one last thing softly, almost to himself. A check is just paper, Amelia, until you decide what it's worth. I drove home in the fading light, his words looping in my head. The snow had melted on the streets, but something inside me had settled solid and calm like respect, finally finding its rightful place. They thought the check was fake, but the only thing fake that night was their love. I didn't win anything, I just stopped losing myself trying to earn their approval. Now every time I pass the bank on my way to work, I think about that moment. The call, the silence, the truth that finally landed. Some lessons don't come wrapped in gifts. They come disguised as heartbreak, and they stay with you longer than money ever could. If you've ever learned what respect really costs, share this story. And tell me, what would you have done in my place?